the daily edition of Market Wrap with Mo Ansari.
Brought to you by Compact Asset Management,
Providing proactive portfolio management and world-class wealth management solutions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Market Wrap. I'm Mo Ansari, president of Compact Asset Management, and you're tuned in as you've been doing so for 2 decades now. And as always, you can call in, and I will be more than happy to share with you my 33 years of trading experience. On our guest line is Professor Robert Reich. He is the professor of public policy at the Goldman School of Public Policy at the University of California at Berkeley. He is also the former Secretary of Labor during the Clinton administration. Secretary Reich has authored 11 books, including the national bestsellers The Future of Success, Locked in the Cabinet, and his latest book, Super Capitalism. You can also read his personal commentaries at robertreich.org. Professor Reich, welcome back to Market Wrap.
Hi, Mo.
Professor, this morning we got these numbers, much worse than expected. The private sector only added 41,000 jobs. The average length of unemployment continues to rise, and more Americans have stopped looking for work than a year ago. What does all of this tell us about the state of the labor market? And then we will talk about the economy.
Well, it's terribly disappointing, Mo. I think most economists looking at this had expected a far better labor report. At this stage of a so-called recovery, we should be seeing many, many multiples of this number. I mean, if you take away census workers, you're really only about 20,000 new jobs. But you need 100,000 or more than 100,000 new jobs per month simply to keep up with population growth. So the labor market continues to deteriorate.
Professor, this morning on your blog, robertreich.org, you talked about why we are falling into a double-dip recession. That was the headline of your blog. Tell us why you feel that we are going into this double-dip recession.
Well, the problem, in a nutshell, Mo, is that the major boosters of the economy so far have been temporary, and that is the government stimulus package, which is now 75% spent.
Right.
Number two, very low interest rates, near zero, but the Fed can't keep those interest rates low forever without kind of flirting with some sort of a speculative bubble. Number three, consumers basically buying because they had to replace major durables. That's why we saw an increase in the sales of cars and major appliances.
Secretary Reich, what a lot of people are saying right now is we are just prolonging this by putting out this stimulus, and we are just, we've got zombie banks, and we're going into a Japan-style situation where we just prolong the pain over a long period of time rather than just getting it over and getting it done. The weak players get washed out. It's a harsh reality of capitalism, and people who made these bad loans, the companies that did all the stuff that they did, they go out of business. We start with a clean slate and we start rebuilding. All we're doing is with the stimulus is sort of drip, drip, drip. We're continuing to make it prolonging the pain. We're not taking all the pain at the same time. We're just prolonging it over a period of time, but that also slows down future growth.
Mo, you sound exactly like Andrew Mellon, who was Secretary of the Treasury under Herbert Hoover, who said in 1932, what we need to do is liquidate. I mean, everybody's got to take the pain, liquidate the workers, liquidate the corporations that are in debt, liquidate everything. We'll start all over, and we've got to go through this. The problem is the economy doesn't really run that way. Wages don't really decline all that much when people are out of work. People are out of work for long periods of time, lose their skills, they can't get back into the workforce. And if there's not enough demand in the system, what happens is you flirt with what we found in at the start of 1929 and all the way through the 30s, which was the Great Depression.
So what you're saying is we should continue this, but how long can we continue to spend and spend and spend when we do not have the money? People are getting concerned that we could end up in a Greece-style situation, or the Hungary, as we heard today, or Spain, or Portugal, or whoever. Everybody has a credit limit. Even the United States, we are the richest, the most powerful, the wealthiest nation in the world, and where we hit those limits are a lot different than Greece and everybody else. But don't we get to a certain point where we run into the same problems, where we have just too much debt?
Well, actually, Mo, in the short term, you've got to separate short-term and long-term debt. In the long term, that is over the next 8 to 15 years, we've got to get down that long-term debt. Most of it is Medicare, some of it is Social Security, a lot of it has to do with entitlement programs, some of it has to do with national defense. We're spending about $715 billion a year on national defense, and we just can't afford that forever. But in the short term, that is this year and next, what we've got to do is spend more in order to get people back to work so that they can pay taxes, so that the economy can grow, so that overall we can pay down the debt. I mean, this is the thing we learned from the Great Depression. We didn't get out of the Great Depression until the Second World War.
Right.
And by 1945, everybody had been employed, everybody was getting paychecks. The national debt was about 120% of the total national economy. That was awful.
Right.
But we brought that debt down because the economy thereafter grew so buoyantly. People had a lot of pent-up demand because they had money in their pockets. I'm not saying we do anything like that. I don't think we need to go that far, Mo. But we do have to understand that we got to get people back to work. And there are a lot of potentials out there. I mean, look, states and local governments right now are cutting back on police, firefighters, on teachers.
Right.
In fact, we're seeing the state and local governments actually doing a kind of reverse stimulus to the extent of about $115 to $120 billion this year and next.
Secretary Reich, let's talk a little bit about the debt, and that's what everybody's talking about. Everybody was concerned about inflation. What I'm more concerned about is the implosion of the debt bubble, a debt contraction, and that's what we're seeing where banks are saying to each other, look, I'm not going to give you the money because I don't know if I'll get it back. Banks are not giving the consumers the money, and so on. Everybody is getting very, very nervous. And now we're starting to see it doesn't matter how much money the government puts into the system, if the velocity of money does not increase and whoever gets that money just sits on it, nobody spends it. Doesn't that create another problem of itself and we start to get into this debt contraction?
Well, if what you're talking about is a lack of confidence, a distrust
Right.
among lenders that they're going to get their money back from Greece or even from Europe, you're right. If sovereigns or if corporations or if banks start to default on their loans, then obviously lenders are going to get very, very nervous. But ironically, when the rest of the world gets nervous, what happens? They put their money into United States treasuries.
Right.
Right now, the return on a T-bill is very, very low. We can borrow more easily today than we could before the Greek crisis began. Yes, I think that lenders around the world would start to get worried about the United States and stop buying T-bills, but right now they're doing just the opposite.
We have about 60 seconds left, Secretary Reich. Do you think we are going to slow down before we get better? We go into a double-dip recession. The economy slows down in the second half of this year considerably, and then maybe in 2011, 2012 gets better?
Well, let me put it this way. I hope that our policymakers, both at the Fed and at the Treasury, obviously the Obama administration and Congress, they understand that what we need now is very low interest rates, and we need more stimulus. And if they do that, that's the lesson we learned in the Great Depression. It's the lesson we learned again in the slowdowns in the 50s and 60s and 70s. We're going to be fine. The issue today for the United States is not inflation. We don't have to worry about inflation. But if we don't get interest rates down low enough and enough spending, then, Mo, I agree with you. I think we're going to see a double dip. It's going to be very hard to get out of the next recession, particularly if it turns into deflation when prices start declining.
Professor Reich, I want to thank you for taking the time out on this Friday afternoon and being with us today and giving us your view of what you think is happening right now and giving us your view of the employment numbers that we got this morning. Thank you again for being with us.
Thanks,
today.
Mo.
That is Professor Robert Reich. He's a professor of public policy at the Goldman School of Public Policy at the University of California, Berkeley. Great blog. He puts it out every day, just about, robertreich.org. R-E-I-C-H is Robert Reich, one word, .org.